Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. I'm extremely happy to have Greg and John back from White Knight Labs. Had them on an episode back in June. Got a lot of feedback from folks really enjoying the episode, and the kind of stuff they're doing is super cool, and the things that people are really interested in. When people think about pen testing sometimes is really the kind of stuff they do. Whenever there's kind of misconceptions over what all is included in pen tests, maybe it was more in line with what full scope pen tests used to be, all the really cool stuff that's done. Some of the pen tests nowadays, if you're a pen tester, doing your standard pen tests are not always fun. And when people think about pen tests, this is the kind of stuff they think about. But really glad to have you guys back. Thanks for joining for a second episode.
Good to be here, Phil. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us back, man.
So how's your going? We're about to wrap the year up. So how's your year been for you guys?
It's been pretty explosive on the services side and the training side. So there's two main branches of White Knight Labs. There's the educational piece, and then there's services. Services will always be what our main focus, but we always like giving back to the community, which is why we have the educational side as well. So within the services side, we stood up like an attacking CICD pipeline service this year. We stood up an embedded team. We traveled to more conferences. We're teaching at NorthSec now. Just getting our brand out there, trying to compete with some of the other larger shops like Mandia, Trusted Sec, Black Hills. I love those folks, but we're trying to make a name for ourselves. So we can get to the top of the food chain as well. So
yeah, very cool. So yeah, you guys do some pretty cool things. So before we get too far into it, for the listeners, I will share in the show notes the link to the original episode if you want to hear John and Greg's hacker origin story, which is very interesting. I highly recommend. But why don't you do a brief introduction, just kind of introduce people, our listeners, those that may have not heard of you guys.
Yeah, sure. My name is Greg Hatcher. My background, I was a Green Beret in 5th Special Forces Group for 7 years. Did a couple combat deployments to the Middle East, got out in 2017. My first job out of the military was being a stay-at-home dad, which is a very interesting transition for me. And after that, went right into a senior penetration tester position at VDA Labs, where I met John. We worked on a bunch of cool projects at VDA. We did some consulting with Microsoft around improving kernel security for the Windows 10 operating system. And then we went our separate ways. I went on to be a contractor at CISA, leading a red team. And then we started WKL a few years back. So, John?
Yeah, I have an interesting background. Started hacking at 17, but you can't be a hacker right at 17 for a major corporation. So what do I do? So I went to IT help desk, played call center for 4 years, right? Just working Active Directory, small security stuff, leveling up. Became a junior sysadmin, started managing top firewalls, AD, EDR, really got my feet wet. Security lead, and I played CISO for a while. Rolled 9 locations across the world, 2 in India. And ran a pretty big team. Did a ton of client stuff, ISO, PCI, really understood the corporate structure, and burned out pretty fast. Left that to go to pen testing, and man, that was my calling. So just took off from there. And with the corporate structure, with all the compliance stuff, understanding what organizations need and require, I leveraged that to be a better pen tester. And I then moved up to red team for a company called F-Secure, tested through the global PEMs, during my peak there with the US and the UK team there, phenomenal guys. And then me and Greg put our heads together. Split the LLC for White Knight Labs, became business partners 50-50. And with Greg's help, my background, we took WKL to the next level. So we've grown 10x every year. Without that man, the other man, to give that man some credit, it's phenomenal
Thanks,
business
dude.
guy. So
That's
without
awesome.
that, we wouldn't be here today, man. So huge help. So
Yeah, you guys seem to make a great team. So
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, what of our... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
One of our really interesting initiatives at WKL right now is we're participating in the SkillBridge program. So I wanted to really touch on this. So if you are transitioning active duty folks, if you're Air Force, Army, National Guard, whatever, you're leaving active duty. Well, actually, National Guard's not active duty. But if you're getting out and you have like a year left of your contract, you can do a SkillBridge internship. So if you're like any kind of like offensive, defensive, SOC, all those roles within the active duty military, you can do a SkillBridge internship at WKL or any other like boutique shop that's participating in the SkillBridge program. So I'm very proud to say that we're doing that now. Our first SkillBridge intern is starting Q1 of 2025. His name is Manny Vargas. He has a deep background working for the NSA and the Air Force. So very stoked to have him. It's our way of giving back to the community as well.
Ooh, yeah, it's great to see you guys doing that. Yeah.
Okay. You brought up a good topic. So on top of that, another way we give back is we also give discounts to all of our trainings to now veterans, first responders, and EMTs, anything like school teachers, anything around those lines. So reach out to us, and we give at least 20% or more for anybody who can validate that they're on the front lines of our society. So really big stuff there. So that's another way that we give a ton of discounts. So everybody knows I give discounts for previous students and a lot of veterans as well. So hit me up. You guys get some codes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Before we get into the training stuff, if you would share with our listeners, what kind of differentiates you from your average consulting company that offers offensive security services?
You want me to take that or you want to do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. This is good. I love this. We talk clients all the time, but it's so interesting. We're talking on podcasts, right? All right. So I'll give this feel, then I'll give the truth. So White Knight Labs is an offensive tactical cybersecurity shop, right? We're very unique when we do our testing. So we only hire senior principal engineers. We do have some interns and lower level guys, but most jobs are assigned to a senior principal engineer. That's one engineer per day rate. That really makes it a lot different. We're not flat rating companies. We're not here for the greed. We're here to give really good, valuable testing. Super critical on how we present ourselves and how we talk to clients, right? With that being said, our type of testing goes for the gold standard. So we go above and beyond your typical penetration testing shop. We're looking for the RCE, the big level bugs, criticals, highs, something that's devastating PR nightmare that you would see in the news. We're able to identify those. We're not just giving like TSL cert issues, your standard, just low level tier stuff, right? We're top of the line. That's what we strive to do. So
secure cookie.
Yeah, it's a secure cookie. There's a few shop. No, that's okay. No, there's a few of the shops out there today that will do what we do. I'm just not sure exactly who that is anymore. The industry shift and change with all the layoffs and things like that. So unfortunately, the big names you see today have really fallen down the peg in my opinion here. But a good example is like, we just don't get domain admin, right? When we talk to a client, one of my most famous questions, if you've ever having on the phone with a client, is my question is, how do I cripple your business to the knees? And then it's such a hard question to answer from an IT perspective, because most IT personnel don't know how the revenue is generated in the business. And that doesn't help me, right? If I wanted to destroy your company and I wanted to take down the revenue, stop that company from generating revenue and shut its doors. That's what a true attacker in ATT, or that's what I would do. If I could cut off the database, if I can cut off any method of revenue coming in, that business doesn't shut its doors. I don't even care about the data at that point. If I could just stop any money revenue generating. And a lot of IT personnel can't answer that, so we get additional people on there. So we take that to perspective and we target safely in a very safe manner what that objective or scenario would be on our pen test to a level, to a degree, right? Not all pen tests, every pen test is different in our company, but that's what we really strive for, is above main admin, databases, web servers, cloud technology, AWS, Azure, GCP, you name it, we'll go for anything. So just getting administrative access to the network is just 25% of the objective, not even.
Yeah, so John and I have worked at multiple shops before starting WKL, and typically in internal, the whole goal was to get one attack path to domain admin. And, our engineers at WKL will get domain admin typically in the first hour or two, and say there's like 6.5 days left on the internal penetration test. We're going after the crown jewels, we're going after blueprints, proprietary information, strategic plans, trying to get access to their GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. We're trying to pivot to their Azure, maybe do a global admin account takeover with their permission, of course. So domain admin is just the beginning, even not an internal penetration test.
Some of the differences is that we're not just internal external anymore, right? I mean, we're now embedded. We're now heavily investing into the cloud. I mean, so investing in the cloud, it's crazy. almost every engagement has a cloud component, a cloud component now, which is pretty interesting, right? Now we have, the CI pipeline, the Azure DevOps, and we're doing a ton of different things that a lot of other shops aren't offering anymore, or it's a very unique and very expensive service offering. So we've taken that, we've built our own teams, and we're now offering it to a very, reasonable price to a lot of clients where they now can afford something like this, not to pay $500,000 for the, some crazy amount, some crazy competitor. So, and I think that's what makes us really different here.
That's one of the things I love, because if I'm an organization and I'm wanting a good pen test done, or, some offensive security services, I'm going to go to a company like yours, not one of the big four, because the big four, they're awesome on audits, but you don't see the big four putting out all these tools, doing any kind of white papers, write-ups, and CVEs. You just don't really, maybe there's some that do, but that's very rare. It's organizations like you. And one of the things I think too, want to kind of get your input, because I know a lot of times when companies bring in a consulting company and say, we're doing a pen test for PCI, they really don't focus much past hitting the goals of PCI, and that's done. So how do you guys differentiate if your customer brings you in to do a pen test, maybe it's for compliance? How do you work with them to help them set the goals to give them a better outcome than just passing PCI?
No, good question. Very good question. So remember, let's set the bar right now, though. Every client is extremely different, right? So the clients who bring us in for PCI, CD, segmentation testing, they know exactly what they want, right? And some of the problems we have is that they said, hey, this is your scope. There is no scope creep. There is nothing beyond this, right? And those clients have it set in stone. You can tell IT exactly how it should be, but they don't want to bend, right? They don't want a better test. They want the same test results every year. So those clients right there, I call them unbendable, right? They're the same test every year. They rotate vendors, and that's okay. We're happy to have their business. We're happy to help. Maybe we'll find something that the last group didn't find. But then you have the clients that say, hey, we need a PCI pen test, but what else should we do? How can we help security here? They really care. They have a passionate bone in their body for helping that company not get ransomware, not get hacked, staying secure, preventing insider threat. And those are the clients that we really strive to be with, because, hey, you do want to do your PCI testing for your clients, but maybe look in this area here at your file servers, or maybe look over here, or what are you doing? Maybe actually do a full discovery call and they tell us everything they're doing. We take notes and we put our heads together and say, hey, you know what? Maybe you actually need a cloud audit this year. You've never looked at your cloud. You don't have MFA turned on for any external services. What are you doing? And they've never looked at that area before. They've always been told to do it this way. So that's some of my favorite things to do with clients, and really helping them, kind of bridge past that typical check the box kind of compliance stuff, right, with PCI.
Yeah, and sometimes we have to have sort of a come to Jesus moment with the client and help them understand, kind of explain to them that compliance is not security. Like up until recently, PCI DSS password policy requirements were 8 characters, which is terrible. Like if we actually dump the entities.dit on the domain controller and it's a password policy of 8 characters, we're going to crack all the passwords within a couple of hours. So it's important to remember that PCI DSS compliance is, although a requirement, is not security at the same time.
Yeah, there was
that's.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was someone just telling us the other day that there was a program out there that combined all the compliances together and like PCI plus to the bottom. I thought that was super funny. Like NIST is really good, and they say ISO is actually one of the top ones as well. So like if you have a client that does all of them, yeah, PCI is like one of the bottom tier compliances you can have. It's like SOC 2 type 2, right? They're bottom tier certifications. They mean nothing. Want to look at them. So
yeah, it's kind of interesting that compliance really drove pen testing, because when I got my first pen testing job back in 2012, we were doing pen tests around PCI, and you didn't see that many pen testers. I would go to our local security meetups, and here in Dallas, we're fortunate to have a DC group and then also Dallas Hackers Association, and even going to some of the ISSA meetups and meetings that are outside of the offensive security side. You would go to these meetups and there might be 1 to 3 offensive security professionals. And now you go to these meetups and there's quite a few more. It's just interesting how it's kind of drove that industry. But one of the things I've seen, that it's also brought awareness that you need pen test. But at the same time too, I kind of see how that has kind of hurt things from focusing on compliance and just kind of leaving out the general spirit and reason for doing a pen test and just trying to achieve that checkbox.
Yeah, you're right. It's oh man, dude, we talked to so many clients all the time. I mean, we have more and more clients this year than we've had last year and the last year before, and it's always the same song and dance. Hey, we need a pen test as cheap as possible, just check the box. And of course, we'll help as best we can, but there's no $1,000 pen test. It doesn't exist, right? It doesn't happen. So if you're getting a pen test for $1,000, you really need to check what you're doing. It's necessary. That's a scam.
Yeah.
And a lot of clients will do that. And then they'll say, hey, Lightning Labs, they'll reach out to us reputation or however they found us. It doesn't matter today. But they'll say, hey, we want a real true pen test. It's like, yes, that's exactly what we can do. We can do the check the box. We can do a true pen test. And the only reason they reach out is because they had a security incident. Something happened with cloud. They were hacked, ransomware, or something. And then now they're on full protection mode to prevent this from happening again. And that's the same song and dance we hear from every client coming through. So they took the cheap way. They never invested the money in security like they should have. And then now it's, oh, hey, we have $1 million budget. We can do whatever we want now. So it's tough to have to come to that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting the budget people get after a breach. I knew some guys that worked for a company that had been breached twice. So they had all sorts of budget for security software, services, and training.
Yep.
Yeah, the floodgates just magically open all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right?
All of a sudden it's a priority. So you guys offer some really awesome training. If you wouldn't mind getting into, the type of training you do and the courses you have.
Oh man.
Yeah, there's 3 courses that are fully fledged out, and there's also 3 courses that are in beta that are going to be coming to fruition here in a couple months. So, John and I wrote our flagship course, the Offensive Development course, 3 years ago? And I kind of just out of whim, I sent an email to Velda Lemke of Black Hill. She also runs Deadwood for Wallace Hacking Fest. I was like, hey, I've got an idea for a course. It's called Offensive Development. What do you think about it? Here's a sample syllabus. And she was like, yes, we'd love to have you. So that kind of sparked that. And then we actually had to write it. So we taught that at Wallace Hacking Fest. I think that was in 2021. And then that's been a work in progress ever since, because it's basically teaching hypercurrent techniques, how to bypass modern AV and EDR, neuter endpoint defense. And as we know, it's a cat and mouse game, offensive and defensive cybersecurity. So that course gets rewritten pretty much every year, unfortunately. Well, fortunately for our students, because they can take that and then go do loader dev and bypass top tier EDR products. John, you want to talk about the RTO course?
Sure. So, just so you guys know, when we refer to OD, we're referring to the original names. Everything so far this year has been rebranded to the certification course, right? So the OD is now the ODPC, the ARTO is now the ARTOC, and then our Azure and Tactics is the OATOC, something like that. So I still get confused.
We don't know the names of our own courses. Welcome to WTL. Yeah,
the acronyms. I got the 2 and the 3. Can't blame me. I don't teach the other one, so you know how it goes. So the advanced red team, so the original, the ARTO, the AROTC, whatever you want to call it today. So advanced red team operations course. It was originally 2 days taught live, using Cobalt Strike. Your goal, what I gave you was a Cobalt Strike server, and I taught you how to build redirectors and to protect your infrastructure, your CPU infrastructure, from the blue team, soft team, and how to use it as a weapon instead of just oh, hey, here's Cobalt Strike, let's go run a beacon somewhere. No, we're not teaching that. We're teaching top tier, the advanced way to run relays, redirectors. We also embed redirectors into Lambda. We now use an Azure function as well, and we use DCP and also TDNs through Azure. So pretty slick. So I give you a full diagram, and we start from just a Cobalt Strike server, and we end up all the way to Captain Beacon through 4 different methods. Pretty slick. So the new ARTOC course for this year has an alternative. It's not just Cobalt Strike as well. We do love Cobalt Strike, but we want to give an open source option as well. We're now including Havoc. That's being released soon. It is on the website. And all of our courses, our top 3 courses, will be available for on demand. You can so here's this, and any students who are listening, you can purchase on demand, but we're not ready yet, 100%. So you are free to purchase. You are free to purchase it. You can get content labs. The exam courses are still in beta; they're not fully active. So the links are available. I have not publicly made announcement yet. That's why some of you are asking, "Hey, can I buy this?" Yes, you can buy it 100%, but we're not fully ready yet. So the website is completed, but we're still beta testing on the automation process. We rewrote the entire automation process in our back end. So it was a huge initiative. for this year. We're almost complete. We're about 85% of the way there, which is pretty good. Moving into our Azure course, as you guys know, the team fully redid the Azure course for automation for live training and on demand. Man, our Azure team, these guys are just go-getters.
Yeah, Shrek Solid or on the Karmar are they're a dream team for sure.
I can't speak so highly of these guys, man. It's just crazy. Those guys are awesome. But they redid the entire Azure course. They have a brand new attack path now. We're always updating the course. It's strictly offensive, guys. It's offensive. It is a great course. If you want to, I know there's a ton of Azure training out there. You know, you guys have taken altered security, things like that. Come take our course, compare it. Let us know. We have a different spin on our courses. Remember, we're offensive. We're tactical. You know, our courses really feel that way. So, and that's the goal, right? So there is an exam challenge for all of them now. It's like the defensive development, ODPC has the certification challenge. It is going to be difficult. Our exams are not going to be just walk through the door, get the exams. We're going to give you guys 48 hours, 72 hours of taking the exam. You have 48 hours to write a report. Every exam is required to have a report, a professional report. That's a requirement. We know you all can write reports, but as a pen tester, it's a requirement. And you guys you guys pass the challenge. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of the offensive security certifications, the exams. But the only thing I really downpoint is proctored. I don't like proctored, and I do not like installing software on students on machines. So those are the two things that we're not going to do. If you want to cheat, you cheat. It's your certification, it's your exam. So that's how it's going to be. We're not going to proctor you guys. So moving into 2025 for January 1st, we have the offensive Active Directory certification and course coming out. Now this one's very interesting. Me and Greg put our heads together. Another AD cert, another AD course, right? Why? AD is a very interesting area and it's still expanding. So this time what we did is like, okay, what can we do to really make a course like super well beneficial? You know, a cheap price point, $500 on demand. There will be no live training for this, no boot camps. This will be strictly on demand for now. We're including all the ADCS escalations, 1 through, I think, is it 14 today? 13 or 14? I think it's 14. Yep, we're going to include all of them. We're going to touch them all. We're also going to include man-mill attacks as well. That makes sense. Any relaying, end-to-end authentication, bypassing, signing, all that kind of stuff. Great stuff. We're also including SCCM in there as well. You'll have your own custom SCCM servers. And then also we're including a bunch of SQL. Because unfortunately, even in our team and other teams, SQL is still an unknown beast. We see a lot of pen testers not fully understanding SQL or have never gone up against SQL in an Active Directory related, like where SPNs or like, you know, link DBs or things like that. So we'll be including a lot of data around that. And also just general Active Directory investigations, enumeration, nesting, groups, forums, bidirectional, 2-directional, 1-directional trusts. You name it, we're going to include it. Chair and child and parent relationships. So it's going to be a very, very offensive little Active Directory. The goal is, if I give you 600 pages in a lab guide, you should be able to go into any AD environment, use open source tools from start to finish. And the cool thing is, it's not just going to be PowerShell based. It's going to be, you're going to be required to do it on Windows and Linux. So you get both experiences across both OSs. Because we know sometimes you can't always have a Windows box, you got to use Linux as well. Okay, Greg, I'm passing back to you now.
Okay. You had up that tree level pen tester cert?
Tell about the other one first.
I'll give you a break. I'll give you a break, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have an initiative that's very near and dear to my heart, mostly because a lot of services that we start at White Knight Labs and trainings are because we kind of have to. We kept getting this demand for like fintech companies would be outsourcing all their development. So like a dev team like in India or somewhere Oconus. Oconus just means other than continental United States. And the relationship with Sour, they would lose control of their source code. And they're like, we don't really know if our web app is safe anymore. We don't know if there's like, they push malicious libraries, etc. We want you to bring you in, and you're going to basically attack our CI/CD pipeline and then try to secure it. So because of that, we're writing a course called Attacking and Securing CI/CD Pipelines, which is all about attacking ADO, which is Azure DevOps, attacking GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket, etc. You know, just doing like context script injection, bypassing protected main branches, things like that. Kind of weird, but like it came out of demand because we're trying to build a pipeline of training for our engineers. So when we onboard someone that's like maybe intermediate, almost senior, they could take the Active Directory course before their first internal penetration test. or they're about to hop on a CI/CD pipeline penetration test, or do like an insider threat assessment from this viewpoint of a developer, they could take the attacking, securing CI/CD pipeline training from WTL. So that's one that's near and dear to my heart. That was more out of like, we have to do this as opposed to we want to do this, because there's almost nothing on the market right now about attacking CI/CD pipelines, even though everyone is doing it. Like you look at the XC utils, you look at like the code cov backdoor. What's the other one? What SolarWinds? That was another one. There's all these like just horrible situations where CI/CD pipelines are compromised, and that code gets pushed to millions of machines, and like big actors are being compromised, like the Department of Defense, Microsoft, and Google. So, all right, John, take it away.
Okay, last one we have that's coming out. Shooting for January 1st. I did push it back, guys. So the ELPT, I know you've heard me talk about it before. The entry-level penetration testing certification. So the goal behind this one is very similar to the offensive security, but hyper-current and industry relevant, right? That's my goal. So the OSCP made my career back in the day, but as I've gotten, leveled up and learned, is the OSCP really wasn't that relevant for what I was doing as a full-time penetration tester. It got me hired, but okay, that's great. But like, what do I do when I come into an actual like full-time pen test? So my goal behind the ELPT was to build, I want to build an industry relevant certification, maybe get recruiters pushing the certification name, make it a quarter of the price of the OSCP, so it's affordable to entry-level pen testers, and then also give something that's hyper-current and that actually can be, used actually on a real pen test and give you some actual knowledge. So with that being said, we do privilege escalation, exploits against Windows and Linux, and privilege escalation. We talk about like man in the middle, actually escalating privileges in Active Directory. It actually gives a good amount of information in Active Directory, not as much as the offensive AD course, but a good amount, like finding groups, escalating privileges, getting domain admin, dumping the NTDF, stuff like that. It also has a section on, I think we're going to include SQL. We're also going to include bypassing AV EDR, because we know as junior pen testers, you have to reach out to a senior team or, hey, what do I do? I'm stuck. I can't bypass Windows Defender, or I can't bypass Sophos. So we do a very small section on bypassing AV EDR and some some little tips and tricks that you can do and things like that. So the goal with the certification exam is you'll build your own Kali Linux box. You'll be required to do that. You'll certify and test against web application. 7 of the 10 miserable vulnerabilities that I've created for you using AI and Flask. So big fan of Flask right now, guys. Flask is just really changing my game on a lot of things. I've been writing code for a very long time, and I love Python, but Django and Flask, I was like, I don't know. I've been a big Apache fan, but man, Flask is really where it's at. Anyway, I've created all these vulnerabilities in Flask and IISS, and really gonna give you guys some good vulnerabilities. After that, that's part 1 of certification exam. Part 2, all done within 48 hours to 72 hours. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to give. Is you'll go to the internal and you'll be required to get domain admin, and then also exfiltrate some data like out of a DB and do some cool stuff for your objectives. Right? You'll have flags. You'll be required to get those flags, but we'll also remember we're grading you on the report here, your professional report, and it's clearly explaining your attack path and also finding vulnerabilities for us. So typically how a WTL pen test would actually run. Something that you can take to your next employer, your first time job, and say, hey, listen, I did this certification. I wrote a full pen test report. Give it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I can care less. It doesn't matter. That certification exam will change for almost every other student. So we use Terraform. We automate quite a bit of stuff. So no certification exam will be fully 100% the same, which is pretty slick. So lots of work behind that. So that's the ELPT. The goal for that one will be coming out January, February 1st. I took a break from writing it. We have a lot of content, but we went back to our flagship courses. We've got a lot of requests to go on demand, and that's our big push right now. It's on demand for our first 3 flagship courses. So, and that's what will be really our main focus. But we have other additional courses coming out as well. So, good stuff. Lots of fun.
Yeah, that's great. And that's one of the nice things I liked hearing you say too, that you went back and you redesign the courses, you update them, because some of the issues you see with courses that they don't update frequent enough, or they may wait 3 years before they make an update to it, or longer than that. So that's great that it's current. You keep it up to date, added to it, and making sure that people know all the latest techniques and stuff in your courses.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
oh,
especially
I bet it is.
working on offensive security, where we always have to be one step ahead. Like it gets a little bit miserable having to update courses constantly. Like maybe we should have just wrote a course on using Wireshark. Like,
yeah, that sure doesn't change for sure. I mean, that one sounds fun. We should do that.
Yeah, it's kind of making me wonder how you guys have time to do your work if you do all those courses. That sounds like you guys stay pretty busy.
There's a big team in the background.
Yes,
oh, good,
sure. We have
good.
a phenomenal team helping us. So credit goes out to them. We wouldn't be able to do it themselves.
Well, that's good. So yeah, before we get a little further into the episode, one of the things we kind of discussed beforehand, since AI is such the hot topic, I was wanting to kind of get you guys' input on how you leverage AI in your day-to-day doing in your offensive security assessments. How you guys are leveraging that?
I love AI. You want me to go first? You want to go?
Yeah, well, it speeds everything up. So beforehand, like say we need to write like a front end and back end for a CTF. We just had one of our developers using ChatGPT. He wrote like the front and back end for CTF in like 4 hours. Whereas as opposed to like before ChatGPT or AI in general, that would take, like maybe 4 or 5 days. So it's definitely speeding everything up and alleviating a lot of pain points, for sure. Yeah, and also like that's another thing that's near and dear to my heart. For Hack Redcon, we have created a cryptographic CTF. So basically, one of our interns from Carnegie Mellon University, his name's Varun. He wrote all the challenges by hand. He wrote intentionally insecure cryptographic algorithms that the students will need to break, and then once they break them, there'll be a flag, and then put it into the database, etc. The queries against the SQL database, make sure it's correct. But super stoked on that one. It's not to be like Azure Active Directory or like the web app CTF. It's just straight up cryptography. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. So for me, as you guys know, I'm a big coder, and I was using chat for a long time, and I still don't know. I still use chat. Chat's not there yet where I can give me back a massive blob of text. It does have a continuation feature now, which is extremely nice. But chat still today, if you guys aren't careful, it will leave out code that it's already wrote previously for you and cut down or slim down your code even further. So there's a big problem with chat and doing that today. And unfortunately, there's really no way around that with the limitation of characters and how to spit back out to you, which is fine. That's okay. Chat, on the other hand, can give you a good starting point. Like it can start with any kind of HTML. You give it whatever you want, a good starting point. Make sure you give bullet points and beats reps. It can give you some really, really good code, and treat it like working in like Bitbucket or GitLab, or say, hey, 1 through 5, here's my 1 through 5 changes, and you could tell it to write receive the code for now, then come back to it or not. It's really unique. I found a super cool tool I want to call out. It's called Cruiser AI, kind of like a co-pilot for Visual Studio. Cruiser AI allows you to drop an overlay on top of Visual Studio. It works with Sublime and a few other IDEs as well. But Cruiser AI is what I've been using right now. I can highlight a block of code. I can tell it to look at my code or add to it, or I can highlight all of my code. It can go line by line. And I mean, guys, I'm talking thousands of lines of code. I have not tapped this thing out yet, where it's like, oh, sorry, can't do it. I found a few errors with Cruiser that's okay here and there. It's not as fast as typing in ChatGPT, but I'll tell you right now, it's really good. So that's one thing I've been using with a lot of Python code. Super, super cool. Another really good feature I love with chat right now is you can download project files. You can tell chat, like I'm a prompt wizard at this point. So you could tell chat to download project files like for Blast. So I said, hey, build me a Blast application for students or a student portal. It gave me a full Blast download with some HTML templates, and I'm just modifying and doing that. So our entire student portal was built with Blast and some chat and Cruiser and most things. So super cool. No, not the CSS, but like most of like the backend code, just a starting point. It's been really good. So it's super helpful. Now, as you guys know, there's rules when working with chat, OpenAI, all that kind of stuff. No client data can go in, no confidential data, no sensitive, things like that. So we do use chat quite a bit, but the rules are no sensitive data, obviously, no triggering things like that. And there's no built-in automation with any of our tools to AI today. So it's not 100% secure and tested. So we can't have any data leakage. So team is free to use AI to help with very easily things like writing, process injection, base template vanilla. Sure, super easy. But anything that requires like, client data, API keys, things like that, it's a no.
Can't do it.
Yeah. Very cool. So yeah, one of the things I wanted to kind of get into, especially after we spoke at GERCON and bring you guys back on, is to share some of your war stories. People love good stories, and and some of the things you guys do and some of the things you've kind of mentioned sound pretty awesome. So if you would mind sharing some of your war stories.
Greg, you want to talk about the physical? I know that's on your mind, dude.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the physical, dude.
The recent physical. Okay. So the client was in Grand Rapids. We will not use their actual name. But they're big in like pharmaceutical, we'll say. And we're supposed to do one daytime operation, one nighttime operation. And we actually assembled two-man teams for this. So me and Dave Peters, he's an intern here at WTL, and then John, it was you and Kurt, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was you and Kurt. And so basically, me and Dave's entire responsibility on the physical, we were going to pull reconnaissance to make sure that this guard was not going to like move around and actually find John and Kurt. Because like the worst thing you could have on a physical penetration test is to have a security guard that just wanders around the building and there's no pattern to like where he's going to the building. Because it's sort of like the difference between a product and a human being looking at malware, right? Like the human being can always bring additional intelligence. Like, hey, that person is wearing a badge, but it's a fake badge, right? Like a camera probably can't catch that. So anyways, so Dave and I were sitting in the parking lot. We're doing the nighttime operation first. And this guard, like it comes out, he like helps a lady to her car because it's dark out, right? Like doing a nice thing for her, goes back in. But on his way back in, he spots me and Dave sitting in the car. And like he's like, oh, that's kind of weird. This guy's like sitting in the car, like kind of staring at me. And we could have had more standoff, and we just didn't. But anyways, so around 10 p.m., the guards switch out, and the guard that had noticed that we were just sitting in the car comes out, and he gets into his truck. His truck is parked directly behind me and Dave. He turns on his headlights. At this point, the dude just sits in his truck for 10 minutes with his headlights on me and Dave. And we're like, this is not good. What's going on? So there's that going on. And then the other security guard that just ripped out, sorry, that was a military term, replaced him. He's out like roaming around. So we no longer have eyes on him. So it's a terrible situation. So eventually the new security guard must have like communicated with the old security guard. New security guard says, hey, he comes out. He's like, hey, you guys have to be here. I made up a story on the spot. Like, hey, we're on a road trip. We're really tired. We were just looking for a place to crash for the night. We were going to sleep in the car. Security guard says, hey, you guys got to go. You can't sleep here. So at that point, me and Dave are essentially burned, and it's just John and Kurt that can be like client facing at this point. So at that point, me and Dave go across the street to a large like facility that is like shipping out, sort of like at a UPS is where we were at. And John, what happened from your vantage point? Because I wasn't there.
So great parts of the parking lot. Just some additional context. There was two very similar buildings side by side that were fully active. Now, guys, when we do a physical, I know it sounds like, oh, you guys should know this stuff. So let's talk about our scoping process for a second here. We have a pretty thorough due diligence process when we ask these questions. We use Google Maps. We have the clients come in and tell us certain things. Like one of the biggest questions is, hey, is the security guard armed? The answer was no in this case. Unfortunately, when we arrived on site, the security guard was armed. And that changed the dynamics of the physical testing like by 100%, right? Because obviously we can't have team members being shot on site. So we still decided to proceed with the physical testing, just in a very different manner. Obviously, not protect the security guard, things like that. We never threaten or do anything to put ourselves in harm's way or our team, obviously. But, physical security guards with armed guns does change dynamics quite a bit. A second major issue that we had was when we do nighttime operations, there's pretty much no one there in the building. Now, we were told that this facility was shut down at second shift, end of third shift, whatever it's going to be.
That was not the case at all.
That was not the case. This building was now running 24/7. We had some extremely bad intel walking into the operation where we sat on site for probably 3 to 4 hours waiting for all the employees to go home, and no one went home. And actually, there was a shift change. So it gets worse and worse and worse. So Greg gets burned probably around 10:30, and he goes across. He's, okay, we're just going to do a recon. We reconvene. We're on the walkies. I'm parked in a different parking lot on the other side of the building. Now, what's super interesting is there's a smoking area, which is a great area to get into. Unfortunately, there's a 12-foot gate guarding that smoking area where I just don't feel like climbing that night to get in there and taking a chance on the door. funny thing about this facility, this building, is that every door was different. They had different badge readers, different doors. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know I can airbag these. I know I can lock wood. I can get in for sure. The problem is we had too many people walking around the building where I couldn't pick the doors I wanted to get into without being seen or caught. I mean, that would literally give me 30 seconds or less to try to lock wood or airbag. It takes time, right? That's why nighttime operations, depending on what it is, tailgating is really not an option, right? And unless there's like, no people walking around. So we're sitting on the far side of the building. We're changing our vantage point. We're moving vehicles every 30 minutes. Not sitting in one spot. Security guard is walking, hasn't spotted us. Greg's been burned. We then go to the far side of the parking lot and we sit there for a while. We're parked behind this crane thing. There's some parking lot in the back that you can get to and drive around the building and things like that. And the other building employees are watching us and staring at us. And like, we're not really being suspicious. We're just sitting there. We're kind of dressed up nice. So they're like, yeah, well, they've left us alone. I haven't really said anything. But all these other buildings have security cameras and security personnel as well. So it's like a triple whammy. And like the worst case scenario you could have when doing a nighttime operation at school. And this building is a high target building, which we did not know exactly how high target it is until after the physical. So we're watching. We decided to make a move on the back door. I have a nice little case to carry with me. I bring a limited toolkit, lock woodings, and airbags. I can tell what type of door it is. It's an external field door. It doesn't have an anti-weighting technique on the front of the door. I have a Williams key. If you know what that is, it's called a Williams key. It looks like a big L. It's a first responder tool. It works phenomenal to get into, especially doors like this. I could tell the door, they enhanced security after. It wasn't before. It's not a brand new North American door. It's an older one, probably in early 2000s era. So there is gap and there is possibility for under the door tool, entryway as well. That was going to be my last result, was under the tool. I was going for an airbag, put a gap, lock wood. And then, try to get in that way. The door looks good. It looked old. It looked like it was definitely.
Pause there for a second. So at this point, Dave and I, if we would move across the street, we were off like the company's premises and the property they own. And there's like a really heavy draw. If you're not familiar with terrain features, a draw is just like low ground. And then we're in the middle of the night. It's pitch black. There's poison ivy everywhere. I look at Dave. I'm like, hey, we have to go into these woods to keep eyes on the security guard across the street. Like, we've got binos. So at this point, we're going through like the roughest terrain I have been in since I was in the Special Forces qualification course doing land navigation. Like, we are straight up breaking brush, poison ivy everywhere. Right in the middle of this, Dave's like, by the way, I have a really bad knee. I'm not sure I'll be able to do this. And he guts it out anyways. So we get in position where we can actually see the security guard. It takes about an hour of us breaking brush and low crawling to the spot. I radio back to John, like, hey, we have eyes on the security guard. But covered from head to toe in poison ivy. Back to you, bud.
Yeah, so Greg's watching the security guard. He's like, hey, you can do the back door. So I run for the back door with Kurt. And I was like, hey, this is what we're going to do. So I hand us some airbags. We're trying to get in. And it's just terrible timing, guys. We had people come out, and then we actually had 3 guys walk out from the other building, and then they're kind of like staring at us, and like Kurt's back was turned, so you couldn't see them. We were actually trying to like crowbar the door, like we weren't trying to crowbar, we're just trying to just lock wood. And okay, guys, we're gonna reconvene. It's too hot tonight. We're gonna back out. So I packed up. I'll get off the door in about a minute. And we knew the security guard, was there. Wasn't sure he was watching the cameras. Was taking a risk at this point. We're on the hook for a nighttime operation. Like we're on the hook for an intent. So client knows what we're doing. We're the green. We're allowed to do this. Just so much activity. We've never done a job with this much activity. It's pretty crazy. We get out, we go to the car, and then I rated Greg. I was like, hey guys, we're just going to tailgate tomorrow morning to get in. And we'll reconvene for another nighttime operations later after we have a better plan. Our first, we hate to say it, we're pretty successful when it comes to operations, but
especially at night.
Especially at night. And we know it's time to call it. It's just, we had too many bad factors hitting us all one time. So we got out, we didn't get caught. This is where it gets really interesting, guys. This is where my side of the horror story comes in, and then Greg gets to skate away very easily, unfortunately. So we both leave. Greg pulls out, and he goes left. And unfortunately, I picked the wrong direction to go, and we went right. We were in Kirk's car, and this was Kirk's first time with us, and he was pretty wild up, and he was speeding a little bit going over. I was talking to him. I was like, I'm pretty disappointed, and I see a cop sitting on the bridge, and he's facing the direction, facing us. And I'm like, yo, hey, you're speeding, slow down. And the cop does something weird. He spotlights us. And I'm like, okay.
He does
He does the spotlight to pull over, like, there you are, like, spotting this car. And I'm thinking in my head, okay, two things happened. Either we were speeding pretty fast and Kurt's going to get a very nice ticket, which, of course, we would compensate and pay for 100%, or we've already been reported and we're reported for suspicious activity and breaking and entering, which most likely is the case. At this point, but I was like, all right, it could be speeding. You know, I had a little bit of hope left in me. And instantly the guy pulled around and spotlights come on our car. At that second, there was a pretty big highway, and a bridge, that you can get on and off. Two police cars, from Kent County pulled in front of us as well. And they actually blocked the highway. And then two more came to behind that and all guns were pointed at us in arms. And then we were told, they had put on the speakerphone for the driver to put his hands out the window and fully get out of the car. And for me to put my hands out of the window and get out of the car. At a quick second, I told Greg that we got rolled up, which means, a physical that, the police came, we police interaction. And, at that point, the police were very serious about having the hands out the window and the windows down. So I put the phone on the ground.
So for context, the four of us are in a group chat. So Dave and I, we hear the sirens. We don't see them get pulled over because we went the opposite direction. The last thing that John texts me is like, hey, we're about to get pulled over. This could go bad. And that's it. for 90 minutes. For 90 minutes. That's the only thing. I'm calling them both. I'm texting them. No communication whatsoever. All right, continue.
So, when the cop pulls behind us, I'll look at Kurt and say, hey, man, like, you can break cover if you want to. It's up to anybody's personal preference if they want to break cover. We have jail-free letters in our pockets. It always is tied back to us, tied back to, it's certified, and it's also tied back to organization leaders who have approved this pen test. And we have a pretty good process, like, you know, not coal fire's process, but like a process where we can get out of jail and actually be verified by the police in what we're doing, right? So we all know the coal fire horror story. That's for a different day, and we all know what went wrong there, unfortunately. We never want to be in that circumstance, so every person is required to get out of jail-free cards, no weapons, obviously, et cetera, et cetera. We have a pretty big book on what we can and can't do with principles for the operation. So I told Kurt, like, hey, if you pull over speeding, you're welcome to break your brake character. You can break, you can tell that's okay. Get a jail-free card. We're okay. We're allowed to be doing what we're doing. Or you can just say, hey, we're just driving down the road. Don't give any information. It's police interactions. It's very iffy. Every police officer is very different. And if you've never been in a situation, it's hard to handle or kind to give information. I'll give information to every officer. So there's, people, nerves, things like that. There's a lot to it, right? When it comes to dealing with first responders, in that case, I've done a lot of interaction and worked with them for quite a bit of time. So I know what I'm doing, but, everybody's different. Kurt did very well, but in this case, we had spotlights hit us significantly and guns were drawn. So at this point, we were not reaching our pockets and, I just said, hey, go to the cop, take it to the cop car. You can break cover when they ask for the letter, like what you're going to do. And obviously they're going to detain us. So Kurt gets out, gets thrown to the ground, gets, cuffed and stuff by Kent County. Then it's my turn. I get out. We're on a curve, we're on a weird ledge. They're yelling at us. ARs are pointing at us. It was the full works. Very great response to a burglary to a very sensitive building. We're put in the cop car. We're tough. The cop gets in there. And it's like, do you know why we pulled you over, detained you? I'm like, yes, I do. And this is where the fun starts, guys. So I was like, listen, he's like, go ahead and tell me your story. He's like, listen, before I say anything, I have a very important letter in my pocket that you need to read. This is how it explains why we're here, what we're doing, why we're in the situation. They didn't believe me. He didn't believe Kurt either. Talking back, like, there's no way. This is so weird, right? So he comes back there. He's like, is anything sharp going to poke me in the letter? He's like, listen, we're not here to hurt you. We're here to help you guys. Blah, blah, blah. We're here to help the client. Just reach in my pocket, grab the letters in my left-hand pocket. There's nothing else in there. So they pull the letter. They call the sergeant. They call the lieutenant. They call the chief. And everybody's laughing at this letter. It's a joke, blah, blah, blah. They're not believing us. They're trying to get
they don't care about
clients. No, at this point, we've sat in the cop car for so long. The client hasn't heard anything, so they think that we went home. So we're at 2:30 in the morning right now. So they can't hold the client. Client's in bed. Like, we haven't been able to access our phones until clients were still on site, or hey, we got rolled up. Like, they didn't get a chance. The client knew that we were leaving, but they didn't know anything after that. So, it was bad. At this point, Greg went back to my hotel room. He showered.
I'll take it from there.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So before we even kicked off the operation, John gave me, like, for some reason, he gave me the card to his hotel room because I wasn't staying in the hotel because I'm local to Grand Rapids. And like, thank God, because remember, Dave and I are covered from head to toe in poison ivy. After we get out of the draw, and so Dave has to work like 3 hours after this operation ends. He starts at like 4 a.m. the next day, so he just didn't sleep. He gets feedback back to Heritage Hill where he lives. And then I go back to John's hotel room. I shower. I'm like freaking out because there's still no comms to the other two-man team at this point, John and Kurt. So I didn't bring any clean clothes with me. Somewhere like John shorts. I'm barefoot. I got a shirt on. I get in my truck. I'm still trying to call him. Still trying to call him. Nothing. I go back to see the physical. I'm cresting the bridge. The police have shut down the bridge. There's two cop cars. They're like, they've just like pulled over. They've closed the road essentially, so cars can't get through. And then so I like pull my truck around. It's like a 2003 GMC Sierra, rusted out. I look like trash. And then I'm like, I just like wave over to one of the police officers, like, hey, I just did a physical. That's my business partner. Like, here's my get out of jail free card. So I think that they would have gone to jail if I wouldn't have showed up to like confirm their story. So they had me get out. They don't cuff me. They just ask me a bunch of questions. Like, I really got over easy on this one. For sure. Go ahead, John. I can tell you want to say something.
Guys, if I could paint Greg's image to you the nicest way possible, is Greg is wearing very tight running shorts. He's pretty much barefoot. He has a wonderful shirt on. But what really set the tone, and I laughed so hard at this, is, Greg, weren't you eating a snack while talking to the officers as well?
I was very hungry.
Yeah, so we're handcuffed still in the back of the car, and Greg's out there talking to these officers, eating a snack, a bag of chips or whatever it was, talking to these officers like nothing's wrong. And it's like, guys, it's so unfair. My hands are numb. I'm in the back of this top car. My shoulder's killing me. It's so uncomfortable in the back of the car we were in. I mean, it's extremely terrible. It's probably one of the worst top cars I've ever been in. And I've been in the back of a few of them. This one was bad. This one, like, your knees had to be sideways. Like, it was not comfortable. Like,
yeah. So when I pull up, like, Kurt's car, every single door is open. The trunk is open. Everything is out of the car. I'm just, like, on the side of the road eating a snack. Even with me there confirming the story, it probably took about 20 minutes for them to release John and Kurt. So,
yeah. I do want to give credit to the Kent County Police guys, though. I know this is kind of funny, but they did not search the car. I asked them to do it by phone on the front door. They did not search with consent. We did not get consent, and they did not get a warrant, and they respected all of our rights 100%. They were extremely professional, and they did a really, really good job. Even though we were tough for a significantly longer time than I would have liked, their response and the protection of the community was phenomenal. So I still give massive amounts of credit for what they did, right? I mean, shutting down a highway, taking two burglars off the street immediately was good. I'm just saying it was a good response from a police force. Obviously, you know, a lot of you are asking, we're running out of time here, but a lot of you are asking, like, oh, we didn't notify police beforehand. We do not notify police beforehand for this exact reason. As you guys know, if you've ever worked in law enforcement, if I tell you I'm going to go break into a building, obviously you know what's going to happen. Like, the police response will be there. They'll be watching, you know, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of caveats behind it. Now, we do notify the alarm companies that we do this so they don't call the call tree and they don't notify police or first responders of wasting time. That's not our goal here at all. But there was some dynamics behind this job, so you guys are wondering. This was a high security building. They do something extremely important here, not just for Grand Rapids, but for the entire United States. It's a high level operation. So that's all we can divulge at this time. So, but yeah,
the trifecta of the roaming guard, the full-time employees that were there working third shift, and the fact that it was like surrounded by buildings that were also high security, that were their security teams were watching us try to break in. Like, it just ended up being too much for the operation. Go ahead.
Yeah. And actually what's funny, guys, is we did not get rolled up by the client. When I say roll up, we did not get called in. We got called in from the other building. Isn't that crazy? The other building caught us, not the client. So super interesting. So there's some improvement for the security guard there, for our client, but the other building had a very high level of security as well, and their client called us in immediately when they saw suspicious activity. So it was pretty good. So Yeah, so there was a lot of protection there as well. Very, very, very hard target. And we'd have a lot of things working against us.
Very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, we got away scot-free. Nothing happened to us. Everybody's okay. It was a great learning lesson for the team, especially for the new guys who have never had such a high intense police interaction. Unfortunately, I've been in a circumstance many times beforehand, so I was very calm, very educated. I knew what to do. But for new guys coming in, this is a possibility. This is what happens sometimes, right? So you have to be prepared to talk to police and interact and explain yourself, very, very calmly and effectively.
Yeah,
very
the
cool
most
story.
important thing is having your hands exposed the entire time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is probably this is the worst interaction we had so far for 2024. 2023, there's another good one that we can talk about later, but this is for 2024, guys.
Yeah.
So
This makes me think back to NolaCon because Pyro and Net 80 from Dual Core and some other folks were up there sharing some of their pen test stories, and they had a physical story that was kind of similar where they were having to crawl through mud and stuff, but wasn't to the extent of this, but it was kind of remind me of that.
Yeah, usually physicals are fairly easy.
Mm-hmm.
Even if all else fails, you can just reverse tailgate. None of that was going to fly for this client.
yeah, it's
Very
pretty
cool.
good.
So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you guys would like to share before we close it up?
White Knight Labs will be at Hack RedCon in Louisville, Kentucky next month. Actually, no, it's this month, isn't it, John? Yeah, it is. Sorry.
Yeah. We'll be at Hack Con.
Yep. So it's being held at Churchill Downs this year. The basically where the Kentucky Derby is held every year. We'll have a booth. Rod and Schreiger flying over from India. They're going to be doing a workshop in attacking Azure. We already wrote a cryptographic CTF. That's going to go live here in a bit. So we always release our CTFs 2 weeks before the conference actually kicks off. That way, if anyone defeats the CTF, they get a free ticket into the conference.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Well,
I'll
thanks,
be
guys.
there, so you guys can come say hi to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to finally get to meet you guys in person at GERCon recently. So look forward to next time.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man.
So you guys are going to be back at Hack Space Con next year?
Yes, we will.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Hack Space
Cool.
Con is actually a blast. Really good, a lot of fun. So
We taught 2
been to that
courses this year. So hope to do the same
cool.
next year.
yeah. Plus, running on the
pla-
beach every day was a good time too.
Plan to be there again next year too. So at least I
nice.
know I'll see you guys then. So
Heck yeah.
well, thanks again, guys.
Yeah.
Man, this is a lot of fun. We could have went a lot longer but I understand
Yes,
your
we
time
could've.
is limited. So so I'll have to have you on again for some more stories sometimes. But thanks again, guys.
Yep. Thanks, Phil.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter at Phillip Wylie. Until next time.